This is why most 3D artists make no money. Most 3D artists are broke, not because they're not talented, but because no one ever taught them the business side. Top 3 reasons why most 3D artists make no money. So let's get into it. So what will we talk about? Why most 3D artists never make any money, even if they're insanely talented, the 3 biggest mistakes holding artists back, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to avoid, how to position yourself, and not get stuck in the starving artist trap. Basically, it won't be feast or famine. So about me, my name is Dwayne Elahie. I'm a CG supervisor, currently in the VFX and the AAA game space. I worked in the industry for about 20 years plus. I've been mentoring for about 15 years plus. I taught hundreds of students. Now, a lot of them are in the industry right now, making $70K plus in salary. So these are the studios I've worked at, I've been at, EA Sports or EA General, Industrial Lights and Magic, ILM, Pixar, Disney. And you could look at my IMDb to see projects I've worked on, such as Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, The Hunger Games, Netflix, The Witcher. I've been the CG character rigging supervisor for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, built tools for and animated and did production pipeline stuff for Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. And some of the projects you may be aware of, such as I built tools that are still currently being used on like the #1 Netflix show right now, K-pop Demon Hunters. Those same tools has been used in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I mentioned before, I was, again, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, and as well as with a lot of other things. And also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, I was a CG rigging supervisor for that. So every character, anything that moved, vehicles, anything that articulated or had to be rigged or moved, or all the artistic designs had to go through me. And other projects as well, The Witcher, Marvel, like Secret Invasion, Avatar, Hunger Games, things like that. So now, let's get into what we're here to talk about, the top 3 reasons. For one reason why artists don't make any money is, reason number 1, they only focus on the art side of things and not the business. So, which is natural when you get into it, you're really into the 3D part of it and the artistic part of it, and you want to learn as much as possible. You'd be spent 99% of the time going down like a rabbit hole. Okay, I'll learn Blender. It's really, really powerful. It's free. Oh, Maya is the industry standard, so I'm going to learn that as well as ZBrush, right? Which is great. You should basically hone your skills and get better. But if you're not just trying to be an artist and actually trying to make money with this, you can't ignore sales, networking, and client outreach. Any business you're doing, not just if you're a 3D artist, if you're going to be trying to make money off your skills, you have to be able to do these things, especially if you're going to do it for yourself. Even if you are going to do this and work for as an employee for another company or studio or project, you still are you are the product. You have to be able to sell a network and outreach to clients, which would be your studio, your employer. Same things apply for it. The other thing is, I mention this all the time, since the movie Field of Dreams, build it and they shall come, it doesn't work like that in the real world. A lot of artists believe if you just make good art, it will sell itself. Maybe if you're in a museum in that context and people are there specifically for that. The reality is clients hire who they know and trust, and you are solving a problem for that client. If a client needs to create a product for product visualization, they are not going to go and hire a character artist specifically if they don't make products, right? If they always see just make characters and they don't see anything that proves to them that they know how to make a product, they're not going to go with them. They're not going to trust them. If you are showing and you're known and you're putting yourself out there that this is the type of thing, this is the niche or niche that you work on, then and clients see that constantly, they're aware of you, then they'll trust you because, I seen his work, I like what he does or she does. Let me create something very similar. or I want my products, or I want that for my products, so let me hire that person, right? The thing is, if you stay invisible, you could stay broke. You will stay broke because nobody hears of you. You could be the best artist in the world, but if nobody knows anything about you, you will not make any money. The second reason why artists don't make any money is they undervalue their work. And this is something, it's a problem that a lot of people face because one, a lot of times you are conditioned to think, I'm going to charge by the hour, or how much should I charge? Let me see what other people are charging. And you charge based on what they think people can afford, and you don't necessarily charge what the value of that, what you're delivering or what you're bringing to the table is to that client, right? So people will take on like $50 jobs for exposure work, or basically get their name out, claim to get their name out there. And that could work maybe at the very, very beginning if nobody knows about you and you have an agreement saying, okay, well, you don't know about me and nobody knows about me, and you're taking a chance. I'll do maybe the first one for free or for $50 or something really cheap. But in exchange, I would like a testimonial, or any following projects, we're going to be changing the price. As opposed to you're just underbidding other people just so you can get the job, which happens a lot with artists. Is that how it works a lot of time is that if you're not really known, clients will go shop. And the other thing as well, clients don't even know who could solve their problem if nobody's really advertising for it. So they might shop around for, let's say, generic 3D artists, right? A generalist, for example. And since nobody kind of distinguish themselves from anyone else, they are, in the eyes of a client, okay, they're the same thing. So basically at that point is who could get the job done for the cheapest at that point. You haven't established a brand, you haven't established yourself as the authority or as the person they will trust. So at that point, you're basically bidding, the cheapest bid will get the job. So it's basically a race to the bottom, right? And the problem with that as well is once you take that job and you deliver, most likely you're going to overwork, you're going to be spent. They'll a lot of times they treat you as kind of like a resource as opposed to like working together or as an authority where you are actually contributing to or as a consultant basically to recommend what should be done for that project. And at that point, once you establish that price, you're always going to be charged that price, right? And they're going to, every time they ask, anytime they need that type of job, they just outsource it to you and you'll do it for cheap and you're going to burn yourself out, which happens a lot to artists, right? And this goes into the next point. Low paying clients drain your energy. They demand the most and they never return on the long term. They complain the most. They're the worst client to work with. They have a lot of changes because a lot of times they don't even know what they want. But if you position yourself as kind of the authority of it, you can start recommending things and kind of like steer the direction of where it go. And that's where you're actually adding value to it. And you could actually charge higher prices for it. The other thing as well is that you're always busy, but you're never profitable. You're just trying to make ends meet and try to keep your head above the water. This is not great to undervalue your work. You don't want to be working hard. You want to work smarter. Like, not to say you shouldn't work hard. It's just that you want a good ROI or a return on investment on the work you put in, right? So this goes into point number 3. There's no clear niche or offer that you are pretty much presenting or bringing to the table. That's what a lot of artists, why they don't make as much money, right? Is that it's not clear what exactly you do, what you deliver. You try to do everything to the, you do characters, you do VFX, you do archviz, like architectural visualization, you do product renders or product visualization, right? So you try to be anything and everything to the client. So if that's the case, then the client, if you're not really delivering or basically saying like a menu or this is what I'm bringing to the table, this is what the value is, and this is the end result you'll get, then they pretty much will just ask you to do anything. And at this point, it looks like, okay, well, you'll bend over backwards to just comply to all their demands. And at that case, that's where you get into the problem right here, where it's the low paying clients drain your energy and demand the most because you do everything they ask you, you just say yes, right? So they treat you as that, and at the same time they'll haggle you to get for cheaper to do overtime. Whereas as opposed to if you have a niche and offer, you say, this is what I do, this is how long it will take, and you can actually show the roadmap and the timeline what the deliverables are. And also, if you know the industry that you are serving or the clients that you're serving, you also know the impact of what you deliver for them, and you could justify your prices, and you know the value that you bring to it, as opposed to charging by the hour, right? If you don't do any of this stuff, then you're just blending into the crowd. You're just another 3D artist, as I mentioned over here, where charge based what people think they could afford and not value, right? So that means that if they're basically bargain binning, right? They're just looking for a bargain and just shopping around for any 3D artist that will give them the best price, as opposed to like, no, I'm an expert or authority in this niche or niche, and this is what I offer. So if you want this from me, or if you want this quality that me or myself as an artist is delivering, then you could actually bring value, and then you could actually command and also be more of like a consultant and bring more value to the project, right? And goes into the next point, specialists stand out, right? So if you are known for being stylized characters, then when a client wants a stylized character, they think of you automatically, right? If they want more cinematic lighting as opposed to more, I guess product visualization lighting, right? Or if they're a company that creates VR or AR assets like headsets or anything maybe mobile related or whatnot, they might look for people who specialize in that, and not necessarily someone who's a VFX expert that you'll see in a Hollywood movie, because it's not the same requirements or criteria, right? And then the other thing as well, niching, right? Just focusing on a specific skill or that you deliver makes marketing, your branding, and charging higher rates much, much easier, because you are known as a specialist. You are known as, okay, they come to you specifically because you want that service, you want that product. So that makes it a lot easier.
Quick heads up for all you 3D artists watching this. If you've been grinding away at tutorials and YouTube videos but still feel stuck, I've got something special for you. I'm hosting a 3D character rapid bootcamp workshop where I'll walk you step by step through the exact skills studios actually hire for. It's not theory. This is the stuff that got me hired and working in the industry. If you want to finally build a portfolio that gets callbacks and interviews, hit the link below and grab your spot. Seats are limited, so if you're serious about going pro, this is your chance.
So to recap, most 3D artists stay broke because they focus only on the craft, right? So of course, that's how everybody gets into it. 3D CG is not something that's it's a learning curve, right? It's something that you get into. People don't just accidentally stumble into it. So usually people fall in love with it, which is understandable. You kind of get obsessed with it and you try to learn everything. And as you learn more, you go down like a rabbit hole. Okay, no Maya, I'm going to learn ZBrush, I'm going to learn Blender, and okay, now there's Unreal and there's Unity and there's all these things you want to learn, but they only focus on the craft, which is fine if you're going to just be an artist, right? But if you want to sell your work as an individual, or if you want to freelance, or even if you want to go to a studio, let's say you want to do Unity assets and work at a game studio that does Unity, work with the Unity game engine or Unreal game engine, right? Then you can't only just focus on the craft of that as well. You have to be able to be unique, and not unique, but well, yes, unique, but in the sense of like niching down, but also show and basically go out there and sell yourself or show your niche that you work with that specifically, right? You don't want to undervalue yourself as well, is that you don't want to necessarily, if you're doing it as freelancer, you're selling your own products, or you're going into different industries, find out what you're delivering them, what is the impact for them, and what's the value to them. Like if they're doing a product launch, for example, and it's worth $1 million to them. Once they sell the product, they make $1 million in revenue, right? You charging a $50 for the asset, that is a pivotal point that makes them sell $1 million. And you're the only person, or there's very few people that does that asset for them. You could charge a lot more for it, right? Because you're bringing so much more value to it. And especially if you do a niche and you're branding and you're known for that certain project, they want your look or they want what you deliver, you bring a tremendous value for them, and you could charge much higher, right? And the other thing, I guess, it just goes into the last thing, they never niche down, right? If you're saying you are a 3D artist or generalist and you do everything, they'll treat you like you do everything, right? So they're like, okay, well, we have this done, we'll just ask this person to do it. And you also give off the vibe as well that you need this job and you're kind of like desperate for the job, so you'll do anything. So they'll ask you for the world. If you give someone an inch, they'll take a mile, right? And a lot of the artists will lose sleep of it, will do way more hours, they don't get paid for it. And then you establish a precedence now that, okay, you'll do all this stuff for $50, for example. And then, so now if you keep getting this client, they're going to keep asking and expecting that price, and they'll still haggle you down and try to get you to do more for less, right? Honestly, at that point, you'll make more money working at a fast food restaurant or whatnot than being an artist, and you get burnt out and then you'll hate the industry, right? So the main things, if you fix these 3 things, you'll already be ahead of 90% of the industry. Now, for the next step, what you could actually do to help get better at this, or to basically, put yourself out there and put yourself in a better position. One, actually audit yourself, actually look at yourself and see, are you currently only focusing on the art, right? Or are you also learning how to get clients and create opportunities, right? So a lot of times people say, oh, that person's lucky. Well, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? And you want to be actively working on both of them constantly, right? So if you put yourself in positions where opportunity presents itself, so let's say you want to get into product visualization, right? Well, if you go to events where people have products and they need to advertise and they'll need assets for product visualization, you putting yourself in those situations will actually create an opportunity. And the preparedness, that's where you're focusing on the art, right? You've been practicing in the meantime, but don't just do that 100% of the time. Work on your craft, and get better for sure. But you want to also allocate time to go and put yourself to create these opportunities. So when you're prepared to make those offers, you could get lucky there, right? Reevaluate your pricing models, right? Stop charging what feels safe and start pricing based on the value. And this goes into understanding more of the business side of what they're trying to achieve. Because when you do it this way and they come to you, especially if you niche down and you're known for that type of work, they'll come to you. And as opposed to you go to them and say, hey, I'm a 3D general artist, I'll do whatever you want. They say, oh, we like what you do. What do you charge? And then you can start assessing what their project is, understand what the deliverables are, and what is really the impact of it, right? And if you understand the impact, to justify the value that you bring to the project, you could charge much, much, much higher than by the hour or by what going to like a site like Fiverr or something, for example, and charging dirt cheap prices just to deliver something. And if you're, and again, if people are looking for bargain bins, that's probably not what you want, because they're looking for a bargain and they're always going to try to haggle you. And again, going back to what we mentioned earlier, where if you get low paying clients, they'll drain your energy, demand most of you, and never return on the long term, right? They're the ones who complain the most and find problems for everything, but don't want to pay and expect everything for the cheapest price, right? So yeah, the other thing we mentioned as well is choose a clear niche. This is the next step, right? Like, be known. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to go out there and you could constantly, you feel confident you could create it, you could create value for someone and get work and do it comfortably. Do you want to be known for characters? Do you want to be known for creating products, for product visualization? Do you want to be known for example environments? Well, do you want to be known for stylized characters, realistic characters, etc.? There's whatever it is. Make sure you know what it is, and you could constantly be known for it, and you could promote yourself and brand yourself out there. So when people are looking for, our clients are looking for that, they'll think of you, right? You also want to put yourself out there. You got to share your work constantly on platforms where clients are, such as ArtStation, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, for example, Instagram. So if those are the clients you're looking for on those platforms, put yourself out there, right? And keep learning the business side just as much as you practice your 3D. So if you want to actually, even if you want to work at a studio, you have to allocate some of your time to work on 3D and the other part of the time to work on the sales part. Like, how do you sell your work? How do you market it, right? How do you network to create those opportunities, right? So here's a bonus tip. You want to leverage your 3D skills in industries outside of film and games, or at least look into that, right? A lot of times there's a lot of opportunities that if you're in the 3D world, like most artists, for example, only chase like studio jobs, right? Obviously, when you get into it, that's all related. So you learn about, let's say, Blender or Maya or ZBrush, and when you look up like what that's used for, you'll see that there's a lot of movies or short films or video games that are created out of that, right? So those are highly competitive. It's a low paying at entry level because there's a dime a dozen people who are just starting out, right? So yes, you could get in. So it's hard to break into it and then to stick out amongst that. It's not impossible, but again, there's a learning curve. There's skills you need to gain to make yourself known in the studio environment, right? But there's huge demands in areas like product visualization, advertising. I mentioned advertising twice there, but AR, VR assets, indie creators, right? Like when I say indie creators, people who are making like independent films, for example, or independent short films, or even indie games, right? YouTube content, or even NFTs, right? A lot of time, let's say product visualization, the people who make products, at the end of the day, they just want the product to look cool, or either for their website, for their social media marketing, or videos or whatnot. The thing is, they know that's the end result they want, but they don't necessarily know how it's done. So they're like, okay, how do we get this done? And they'll go outsource that. Maybe it's a graphic artist. They don't know if it's someone who uses Adobe Illustrator or it's someone who uses Blender. They just know they want that end product. And if you position yourself like, hey, I actually do these type of things, and you actually have a portfolio of that, and you make yourself known in that industry, then you could actually dominate that, while most people are looking for like studio jobs, right? The thing is, you want to take away from this is the fastest way to make money as a 3D artist is to solve problems for businesses, right? And going back to what we're mentioning, if you go for low-paying clients, they're the worst to work with. They give you the most trouble. They ask for the most out of you. You have to work most hours, and even have problems even paying you at the end, right? I hear so many stories of that, right? One way to solve that is actually to solve rich people's problems. People who already have the money and they want the results and they make great margins and great revenue won't have a problem. They don't see a problem of, okay, if we invest this, they look at it as an investment. If we invest this amount on this asset or this person with a skill set, which is you, the artist, right, we'll be able to obtain our goal, our financial goals with it, with the revenues with it, right? Because they make a lot more money, they're able to spend for the upfront cost for that, right? So just remember, don't just make cool renders for your portfolio, right? Like a cool render, you have to put it in context. If you do really cool renders for, let's say, creature work, and you trying to attract a product visualization or clients who want products done, no matter how great the render is, how many samples you use, the ray tracing settings you have on that, or the hair that you use and the detail, none of that applies to that type of client, right? So you have to make sure, I mean, that's cool if you want to do that, again, as an artist, or things you want to do, but if you want to attract certain people or certain certain industries, you want to make sure that you're doing it with intent, right? And you know what you're putting out there, which goes back down to niching down to what you want to put out there, and looking for certain areas that you could pretty much dominate, right? Here's some mistakes to avoid. Do not wait for opportunities. Go out there and create them. Actively go out and seek out, okay, if I'm using product visualization a lot, but it could be any industry, right? If I want to do product visualization, look for meetups that not necessarily for 3D meetups. Maybe it's for certain events, maybe like CES in Las Vegas. That's a big event. That's a pretty big event. You don't necessarily have to go there, but that's an example of one. You could look for local events that maybe there are local businesses that need to do advertising, and you go to, let's say, a meetup, and they complain like, we need to improve our website because, and you see that none of them, they're business owners, they're local, I'm giving an example here, but they're local business owners. They're just trying to operate their business, and they're not experts in advertising. And even if they try to make it, they might try to do it themselves with like a Squarespace or Wix website or something like that, and they don't know how to create assets, right? And you could come in and show like, hey, I know how to do product visualization. We can make a site that has a look and feel maybe like Apple, just with the types of products we make, the visualization we make. And imagine if your local business has the look and feel and the professional look of Apple website, right? That could be super appealing to them, right? And depending how big the business is, and local businesses don't necessarily have to be small. It could be, but they could also, depending on the industry they're in, they could bring in a lot of money, right? So that's the part you have to kind of research and create the opportunities for, but it's out there for sure, right? And remember, you could be the most talented 3D artist in the world, but again, if nobody knows you or you exist, right, you will still stay broke, right? And don't rely on only ArtStation or Instagram or random posts to go viral. Yes, you want to make sure, I mentioned before here, that you want to create YouTube, well, maybe YouTube content that was there, but I think we mentioned it here. Yeah, you want to share your work constantly on platforms like clients, for clients, where clients can see, like on ArtStation, YouTube, and all the other social media, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, right? But the thing is about this is, and this is very important to understand, you don't want to necessarily go viral, right? Why? Because you don't necessarily need 1 million likes, right? These are vanity metrics. What's the point of having 1 million likes of people who are not going to be your clients if you're doing this to attract new clients, right? One paying client is much, much better than 1 million likes of people saying, wow, that's cool, right? So a lot of times people who are making a lot of money, if you look at their followers and the niche they're in, or even sometimes the niche their niche they're in and the stuff they do, they might be doing low poly characters, right? That are not like even later rendered, because they're putting the assets in a VR game. So you're like, oh, this guy makes some, photorealistic creatures, and this guy has 1 million followers or 1 million likes, 1 million followers on his post. He goes viral. But this guy, he only has a couple of hundred. But that person, out of those 100, these are clients, for example, or people are potential clients. So having 100 potential clients that are willing to pay, and a contract could be thousands or tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollar per contract, depending on what it is. And these are not exaggerated numbers. I could tell you for sure, this stuff really does happen, right? It's better to have that than have 1 million likes, right? You want qualified clients, qualified leads, as opposed to just, you can show, wow, there's 1 million likes. Well, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment on that? You have 1 million people, but it's all people who are inspired to be 3D artists and not necessarily going to be clients if that's what you're looking for, right? So again, this goes back to, creating opportunities, right? Avoid the trap of passively waiting, right? You have to actively go out to clients, right? Put yourself out there. You can go and pitch projects if you see an opportunity for yourself, right? Put yourself in front of opportunities. And remember, you don't get paid for being the best kept secret, right? In fact, this is a huge reason why I created a podcast on that. Is I've worked, and over my years, I've worked with a lot of very, very talented people across different fields, and people don't know about them, right? So you don't want to be that. You want to your story out there, what you can do out there, so to the right people, to the right clients. So when they need a project, they'll think of you. So that's it. So thank you very much, and we'll talk and see you next time.